We look to the stars, hoping to find signs of life. We scan the sky for radio signals, the glow of distant megastructures. But what if we're looking in the wrong way? What if true greatness lies not in building monuments that light up the galaxy, but in disappearing so completely that even the universe forgets you were ever there? This is not a story of alien invasion or cosmic warfare. This is a story of something far more unsettling. The possibility that we are surrounded by incomprehensible beings. Our search for extraterrestrial life is largely guided by the Kardashev scale. It classifies civilizations based on the amount of energy they can harness. A Type 1 civilization has achieved complete mastery over its home planet, harnessing the full spectrum of available energy. This goes far beyond burning fossil fuels or deploying solar panels. It means capturing every joule of sunlight that hits the atmosphere, tapping into the geothermal fury of the planet's molten core, and exerting control over natural forces like weather, volcanoes, and earthquakes. Despite all our progress, humanity hasn't yet reached this level. We are still just a Type 0.7 civilization, vulnerable to the very elements we seek to master. But the power of a single world is finite. A Type 2 civilization advances to the stellar scale, harnessing the entire energy output of its parent star. The most famous theoretical method for achieving this is the Dyson sphere, not necessarily a solid, rigid shell, but rather a vast orbiting array of habitats and solar collectors, capturing every photon before it can drift away into the cold void of space. With this immense power, a civilization could embark on interstellar colonization across vast distances, fuel computations on a planetary scale, and even terraform entire worlds to meet its needs. From the stellar to the galactic, the leap in scale is almost unimaginable. A Type 3 civilization transcends its local neighborhood, becoming a true galactic entity. It harnesses the energy output not just of its own star, but of its entire galaxy, billions upon billions of suns, as well as the more exotic and violent power sources of supermassive black holes and brilliant quasars. For such a civilization, crossing from one end of the galaxy to the other would be trivial. It is here, in the speculative rungs beyond the galactic, that the ladder begins to splinter and the nature of reality itself starts to unravel. Even so, futurists have dared to climb further, extrapolating the logic of energy mastery to its most extreme and terrifying conclusions. According to these philosophers, a Type 4 civilization can harness the energy of its entire universe. This entity would command power on the order of 10 to the 46th power watts. Its capabilities would transcend conventional physics, allowing it to manipulate the very fabric of space-time, traverse the accelerating expansion of the cosmos, and perhaps even treat the singularity of a supermassive black hole as a power plant. Beyond this lies the Type 5, a multiversal civilization, unbound by any single set of physical laws, able to harness the energy of multiple universes. So advanced, in fact, that it may hop between different dimensions and timelines as easily as we might cross a room. And at the absolute theoretical pinnacle, the Type 6 and Type Omega, entities for whom the distinction between civilization and deity has dissolved entirely. They are the architects of existence, creating and shaping new universes at will, possessing total mastery over the fundamental components of reality itself: space, time, matter, and energy. These civilizations, if they exist, would be so far beyond our comprehension that their reality would be like a closed book to us. We are looking for something we are ontologically incapable of seeing. But even this is only half of the story. In his 1998 book Impossibility, physicist John D. Barrow proposed a different kind of scale, an inverted one. Instead of measuring advancement by how much energy a civilization can harness, it measures how deeply it can control the structure of matter itself. Barrow realized that our own technological progress has been a story of a journey inward, of our ability to manipulate ever smaller things. From the Stone Age to the Information Age, we have gained power by controlling matter at increasingly fundamental levels. And if this is true for us, why shouldn't it be for other civilizations? The Barrow scale begins at Type 1-, the world we know, and the world our ancestors once shaped. It marks the ability to manipulate large-scale objects, to build structures, move Earth, mine resources. This is the realm of the macroscopic, where power means reshaping the landscape we can see. For most of human history, from the first stone tool to the tallest skyscraper, this was the peak of our ambition. We shaped the world, but always worked with the world as it was given to us. The next step is Type 2-, the ability to control and manipulate genes and biological systems. With genetic engineering and biotechnology, we stopped simply working with the living world and began to rewrite its very source code. This is the level where we seize control of the mechanisms of life itself, treating DNA not as a sacred text, but as software to be debugged and reprogrammed. We are no longer just shaping the rocks and rivers. We are shaping the creatures that walk upon them. At this point, the line between what is natural and what is created begins to blur. Type 3- is where humanity largely finds itself now. It is the ability to control and manipulate molecules, to create entirely novel materials from the atom up. We are no longer limited to the wood, stone, and metal provided by our planet. We can now design matter to our own specifications, creating polymers, composites, and semiconductors that have never existed in nature. We are building a world that is not found but forged. We are becoming masters of chemistry, the architects of a new material age. But even this is just a prelude. Type 4- represents a terrifying leap into the realm of true nanotechnology, the ability to manipulate individual atoms with perfect precision. At this stage, the distinction between a machine and a material dissolves. You could build a starship, a computer, or an artificial intelligence, not in a factory, but by arranging individual atoms like microscopic Legos. This is the dawn of artificial life in its truest sense. Not just code in a computer, but physical, self-replicating machines operating at the atomic level. Deeper still is Type 5-, the ability to manipulate the atomic nucleus itself. Here, a civilization moves beyond chemistry and into the domain of the gods of antiquity. It is the total mastery of nuclear fission and fusion, not in clumsy large-scale reactors, but with a precise surgical control. An entity at this level could stabilize or destabilize any atom. They could create and destroy matter with perfect efficiency, wielding the very power that fuels the stars. Beyond the nucleus lies Type 6-. This is control over the most elementary particles of matter, the quarks and leptons that are the fundamental, indivisible bits of existence. To manipulate reality at this level is to edit the universe at the level of its most basic alphabet. A civilization at this stage could theoretically rewrite the properties of matter itself, altering the very nature of what it means to be physical. The laws of physics as we know them would become mere suggestions, parameters to be tweaked and rewritten at will. And finally, we arrive at the last, most terrifying stage of the inward spiral, Type Omega-. This is not just the control of matter, no matter how small. It is the capacity to manipulate the basic structure of space and time itself, to change the dimensionality of the cosmos, to alter the speed of light, to create or destroy gravity. An entity at this level would not need to travel through space. It would reshape space to bring the destination to it. It would not need to wait for time to pass. It would control the flow of time directly. But how does a being truly manipulate the structure of reality? The answer would not lie in giant machines or exotic fuels. It would be a mastery of the universe's most fundamental level, the Planck scale, the theoretical pixels from which space-time itself is woven. Our own physics hints at these possibilities in the mathematics of warp drives, which require theoretical negative energy to bend space. A Type Omega- entity would not need a ship that uses negative energy. Its very consciousness might be capable of generating such a field, treating space-time not as a fixed stage, but as a pliable medium. It would not build a machine to stir the quantum foam. Its will alone would be the storm in that foam, capable of creating or erasing reality with a thought, making the very laws of cause and effect subject to its command. This inward path, this journey to the absolute heart of reality, isn't about consuming more energy. It's about controlling it, about bending every particle to a single will, becoming the law of the universe itself, unseen, omnipresent, and inescapable. The true soul-crushing horror emerges when we synthesize these two paths. A truly supreme civilization would not choose one path of mastery, it would achieve both. It would be an entity that commands the energy of the entire universe, while simultaneously controlling its most fundamental, granular constituents. What kind of technology would such a being create? What mark would it leave on the cosmos? The answer is none. Their greatest technology would be no technology at all, at least not in any form we could recognize. To them, a Dyson sphere, the iconic megastructure of a Type II civilization, would be a crude, brute force technology. But a civilization that can manipulate space-time would have no need for a device that is nothing more than a giant bucket catching energy. This civilization could extract energy directly from the quantum vacuum or from the rotational energy of a black hole seamlessly. Their power source would be perfectly efficient, perfectly integrated into the cosmos, and utterly invisible to outside observers. This is a concept the futurist John Smart calls STEM compression. True advancement is a process of increasing density and efficiency. It is about doing more with less space, time, energy, and matter. But this drive towards invisibility may not be a strategic choice. It may be an inevitable outcome of intelligence itself. As a civilization matures, its goals likely shift from physical expansion to informational processing, the simulation of new realities, the exploration of pure mathematics, the attainment of a state of near-infinite knowledge. And every single act of computation, every thought, has a fundamental physical cost. It generates waste heat and consumes energy, a principle our own physics recognizes. To maximize computation, an entity must minimize this cost, forcing its technology down a path of extreme thermodynamic efficiency. It must become smaller, colder, and denser until it approaches the absolute quantum limit, a perfect thinking machine whose physical presence has dissolved into computational omnipotence. As a civilization ascends, its technology becomes smaller, subtler, more powerful, and more integrated into the fabric of reality until it eventually disappears from our plane of perception entirely. And in response, they would resemble a black box, functionally rich, observationally opaque. Humanity, right now, is looking for signals, for beacons, for grand displays of power. But the truly powerful do not need to announce their presence. They become background noise. And this leads to the most profound and existentially dreadful implication of all. As a civilization approaches the omega point, its works become indistinguishable from the cosmos itself. But what does it truly mean for a civilization to become its technology? This is not a story of biology turning into chrome, of minds being uploaded to circuits. It is a philosophical and physical transformation so complete that the very distinctions we make between a being, its tools, and its environment cease to have any meaning. Think of a blacksmith. There is the creator, the hammer, and the iron being shaped, three separate things. But a being at the omega point needs no hammer. Its consciousness would not be a ghost in the machine. It would be the machine itself, a mind woven into the very substrate of reality. Its thoughts would no longer be abstract sparks of neurology, but physical events that ripple through the cosmos. The intention to create a wormhole and the warping of space-time become a single, inseparable act. This is the final, terrifying apotheosis. A civilization that has become its technology is no longer a detectable object in the universe. It has become a fundamental property of the universe. We search for a program, but they have become the operating system. We look for a fish, but they have become the water. Their transportation systems would not be starships, but engineered wormholes that our astronomers would mistake for natural gravitational anomalies. Their galactic-scale computers would not be silicon-based machines, but complex arrangements of matter and energy. Or perhaps something so alien we would perceive it as a random nebula or gas cloud, their emissions appearing as natural astrophysical phenomena, invisible to our rudimentary technology. But it is not just the presence of this technology in the universe that is alarming. The ultimate horror is that the very fabric of our reality might be their technology. The fundamental constants of our universe, the speed of light, the force of gravity, the charge of an electron, may not be immutable laws of nature at all. They could be the engineered parameters, the fossilized artifacts of a Type Omega civilization's long-completed project. The universe itself may be a simulation, not on a computer, but as a physical construct. The laws of physics could be the equivalent of their operating system. This is the satirical concept of physics as a service, presented as a serious and terrifying possibility. We are not just living in a universe governed by physical laws. We may be living inside the abandoned machinery of a god. As Seth Lloyd posited in Programming the Universe, a quantum computer the size of the universe may already exist. The universe itself, a sufficiently advanced civilization, would not build such a computer. It would become it. This brings us back to the great lonely question, the Fermi paradox. If the universe is so vast, why is it so quiet? But this theory presents a chilling answer. The paradox is not one of science, but of perception. We are searching for our peers, for civilizations that build with steel and broadcast with radio waves. We are like a tribe on a remote island, listening for the sound of drums from across the ocean, entirely unaware that the air around us is saturated with gigabytes of invisible data we lack the senses to comprehend. The evidence for these higher intelligences, then, would not be a grand pronouncement. It would be a whisper. It might be found in the subtle anomalies that vex our astronomers, the unexplainable voids in the cosmic web, the unnatural precision of the universe's fundamental constants, or the strange repeating signals that we currently dismiss as natural phenomena. But how could we ever hope to spot the hand of the architect? The key would be to look not for complexity, but for its opposite, an unnatural and profound simplicity or purpose. It is the difference between finding a jagged rock in a wild jungle and finding a perfectly polished sphere of chrome. The rock belongs. The sphere is an intrusion of intent. A vast cosmic void might not be a random fluctuation, but a shape of perfect, impossible geometry. The signature of these entities would not be in their machines, but in their mathematics, woven into the very soul of the cosmos. A final chilling whisper of a mind that treated our reality as its canvas. We are looking for loud noises, but we should have been listening to the silence itself. And this reveals the deepest horror of the theory, a horror that is fundamentally psychological. It shatters our belief that reality is natural, that we are ascending a clear technological ladder. Instead, it suggests we are bottom feeders in a completed system, unable to perceive true mastery because it is not separate from our environment. It is our environment. This isn't nihilism. It is a rebuke of our own ontological narcissism, the arrogant assumption that what we cannot see must not exist. We think we live in a physical universe, but we may in fact live in a technological tomb, sealed by a civilization so advanced, so complete, that it no longer needs to speak, because there is nothing left for it to say. They did not die. They did not ascend. They finished. They erased themselves, not in an act of destruction, but in the ultimate act of creation, a total integration with the fabric of everything. The true horror is not that we are alone. It's that the universe itself is their final, silent, and utterly indifferent consciousness. We are living inside the ghost of a god, and we will never know its name.